Hello, everyone. Today, I'm speaking with Akhil JP, CEO and co-founder of Pulse Energy. So Pulse is a prominent player in India's EV charging space, and it provides a SaaS platform with charger management and roaming capabilities. And they have aggregated over 20 CPOs onto their platform, which is currently being utilized by multiple electric vehicle fleet operators. So the focus of this interview will be UEI, the Unified Energy Interface, and how it enables easy interoperability between different charging networks and other potential use cases. So for that, we have Akhil. And Akhil, welcome to EV Reporter Podcast.
Thank you, Prakshit. Thank you so much for having me on this one. And, it's great when people do want to talk about UEI. So we just helped the Beckn team build UEI. So Beckn was already built as a protocol, FIDE, and the team does it. We just adapted it, or we just planted the idea of, could we just adapt that same protocol for energy? So ONDC already has this protocol. It's working in production. It works for e-commerce transactions. So the idea is, can we adapt the same thing for energy? And that's how UEI is born. So it's the adaptation of Beckn for energy transactions. That's ultimately what UEI is. So it will plug into any existing ONDC ecosystems also. So the reason is that it's very important for us to flag that, because it's an existing protocol that has been stress tested. It's nothing new that we're bringing in. And it has all the wonderful stuff that ONDC enjoys today that is also brought into this. What I'll do is I'll share sort of the big picture vision when we put up, when we started going through this UEI journey. So let me just share my screen. So the big picture vision that we had when we built this out was it should be as simple as using a UPI app, right? So if someone is actually, at a charger and they have some QR codes there, they could simply whip up a UPI app and scan that QR code and start the entire charging journey. It should be as ubiquitous as possible. So the idea was not to, hey, there's only this one single app that the government builds or a well-funded startup will build that will have all these charging stations. No, the idea was you need this to be everywhere, because charging station access is a problem, when you're owning a vehicle or even for EV adoption, right? So if a potential EV or potential user is standing in front of a dealer and trying to figure out if they should buy this electric vehicle, charging is always a friction point today. So the idea was that, okay, how do we make it frictionless, right? How do we make charging a frictionless point for them? So that was the idea. And what we did was we started with sort of, okay, what problems exist today, right? So this is pretty simple. So if you have multiple networks, what ends up happening is in Europe, each and every network builds out a relationship, right? And in some cases, these relationships could be exclusive. That means the blue guy could say, hey, you green guy should not integrate with anyone else apart from me, right? They could give them a huge chunk of change and do all of that. That limits or restricts the market. So then it's just anyone who has a largest chunk of change are the only ones who can hold that market. So it didn't make sense for us to sort of follow the European model here. Then it just becomes a monopolistic kind of experience here, right? So we decided, okay, you know what? How do we democratize this? And that's when we looked at Beckn. So Beckn, again, the roots of Beckn goes back to how internet works today. So how does my laptop discover a server on the internet? Very similar to that. A particular buyer could discover a seller and interact with the seller. Very similar to how your laptop browses on a particular web page, which is sitting in someone's web server. So you take those same nuances, apply it to a transaction, and you get sort of a Beckn protocol or a Beckn platform. And UEI is essentially that, right? UEI is, even if it's a vehicle, could literally discover a charging point and interact with the charging point, all using a single protocol format. For charge points, this becomes way better because they don't have to lose control of it, right? So if it's pricing, they can own the pricing. They don't have to worry about hey, I have just signed up with this particular EMSP and they dictate pricing for me. They can now choose that my charges should not be shown if their charges are already there, right? Or they could create a competitive environment. So here, UEI is a protocol that avoids that, right, or prevents it. It's very similar to how ONDC works. Why do people go to ONDC? Because ONDC is an environment where anyone could plug in, any marketplace could plug in and give you traffic, versus someone like, someone like Amazon, who is holding or controlling prices. So the idea was to prevent that. So going into the basics of this is very simple. Starting a charger, the way it works is whenever someone is actually opening up any application, if they have to start a charger, they simply just say, hey, I'm looking for a charger. Here's how much money I'm willing to spend. And it's actually broadcasted to everyone in that network. So it's a very democratic network where it's sent to everyone. Payment is extremely simple, right? You just have to give them like a UPI ID and you can make a payment to that. So again, there's no middleman that's happening. There's no one looking at that traffic. It's a communication between the user and the charging network. And this creates a way more transactions. So if you look at where we started, the European model versus the sort of the UPI model that we're looking at, you could tomorrow have someone like a Google Maps, which is integrated into a Tata Motors vehicle's dashboard, accessing UEI and then driving users to the right charging network, right? And that you don't have to sign up each and every CPO onto the platform, nothing. It just naturally is there. Like it's as ubiquitous as UPI today, right? So that's the world that we want to live in. Because again, you can't, so a lot of people say that, hey, why can't we just leverage UPI in itself? The problem is UPI only takes care of shifting money from one person's wallet to a bank account to the other. Here, it's about taking the money and also processing the transaction. So let's say if you take 500 rupees today from the user, but let's assume that there was a power loss that happened at the charging station, and the charging station only put out 300 rupees. Now you have to put back 200 rupees back into the refund, 200 rupees back to the user. That nuance does not exist in the UPI network. UPI does not have that intelligence saying that, oh, let me just tap into this chargers network, figure out had they indeed done 300. No, that's an extra layer of logic. So what you have to do is you have to build another network similar to UPI, but who has that intelligence, which is, hey, I'm now plugged into these chargers ecosystem such that this network can figure out, okay, this charger didn't work, or the user paid 500, but this charger never even started. So hence I got to refund this money back. So there is that policing system that exists in that protocol where it opens up trust on both sides. Otherwise, it doesn't work. Otherwise, UPI, the reason UPI works is there is a trust built on both ends. Similarly, the UPI works is because there's trust built on both ends. So that's the idea. Integration wise, it's pretty simple. And this is more like the reason why I'm kind of sharing this is for people looking at joining UEI, it's not a complex protocol, right? It's a protocol that it's so simple that once you understand it, you'll be like, hang on, what, this is so simple. Why did I wait so long to adopt this? Because when you think about Beckn and the way Beckn has been evangelized, everyone starts thinking about distributed ledgers or blockchain. No, it's as simple as a language. If I speak Hindi, you speak Hindi, we both understand each other. If someone else speaks another language and someone else speaks another language, they're obviously not going to understand each other. Beckn is a language, a single language for machine-to-machine communication. Very simple. So if I, as a system, speak Beckn and another system speaks Beckn, I can actually make a trade. I can do a trade eyes closed, right? The system understands that this is what I need to invoke in order to do a trade on it. So that's what you're seeing here. A BAP is a backend application provider. So this could be a Paytm or a Google Pay or a Phone Pay. It's essentially the application that the consumer uses today. So this is the app that the user would download, or this is the vehicle, it'd be embedded in the vehicle, right? And BPP is a backend platform provider. So this is essentially the seller side. So a CPO will be here, right? Like a Tata Power would be here, or GeoBP would be here. So they would essentially have these endpoints, and the Paytms would have these endpoints. These are the additional work that these teams will have to build. Now, what does it do? As a BAP, as a Google Maps, they could say, hey, I want to know what are the nearest charging stations in Delhi. They will send it to someone called a BG. BG is like think of it as a neutral entity, just looking to broadcast things, right? That they are the ones who determines that this is a democratic system. So it sends the request to BG. BG says, hey, I have all these registered charge point networks on my network. I'm going to go send this query to everyone because I will ensure fairness. So it will send this /search request to everyone and say, if you want to respond to that request, you simply call up this guy directly. Don't call up anyone else. Like even the registry or the person doing the broadcast, they don't want to act as a middleman. They say, boss, I'm just sending you the message. I'm sending it to everyone else. You just send back the response over to me and it'll be sent back to Paytm. So just that very first call is what goes through like a broadcast mechanism. The rest is completely point to point. That gives complete autonomy, right? There isn't a single party involved in figuring out who responded, how many responses came out, nothing, zero, right? So this is how this works. From an implementation point of view, we had a few implementations that we had done. So the One Delhi app, the idea was the One Delhi app would be a PAP, and it would go through this unified energy interface network and then access different charge points that are connected to the Pulse Energy's platform. Now that we have, now the traction is coming, we have got Kazam also on this network. We have gotten Charge Zone as well on this network. So today, if you're a Paytm or a Google Pay or a Phone Pay, you can in fact just call this service and access all our charges. It's as simple as that, right? So now what we're going to do is I'll just pause here and I'll explain the process of setting this up, right? How does, and I'll stop sharing and I'll sort of go into explaining folks who are listening in to understand what's the process of enlisting, right? So there are two parties to this. There is a CPO.
Yes.
Go ahead, Priya.
Sorry. Before we do, can I just ask a couple of questions? Then we'll move ahead. One
Go
is,
ahead.
if you can explain who controls UEI? Is it you? Is it the people who made Beckn protocol? Who controls it?
No, there's nothing. So no one actually controls UEI. So UEI is simply a language, right? No one controls English as a language.
Right.
You're free to express yourself. I am free to express myself. If you ask me a question, I can choose not to respond to it. UEI is exactly similar to that. UEI is, Priyakshi has asked me, where are the charges? I, as a CPO, can choose to respond back. Priyakshi will only understand UEI though. If I want to respond to Priyakshi, I'll talk in UEI. Priyakshi will understand it, take it.
Okay.
That's the beauty about UEI, right? So UEI is not controlled by anyone. It's not that, hey, there are only these certain people that's going to come onto this platform. Nothing like that. UEI is a protocol. Simple.
Okay. And who decides the rules for the protocol?
So for that, that's an important one, right? And that is where we are setting up an alliance. It's called UEI Alliance or UEI Foundation. We're still figuring that out. But the way we're looking at this is the initial folks, we're going to set that up because you need a working group. Because we have a strong protocol, but obviously there's going to be, like, if you have to scale this to a billion user population scale, you are going to need help and support and feedback from users. How is this working? Who's going to be the ombudsman in this? Something is not working, and how do you ensure it's a fair system? So there is, like, 6G is the working group that has been set up by mostly all telecom players, right? Or the chipset manufacturers. So similarly, we will have a working group kind of format, right? Where people can come in and provide feedback. Very similar to how protocols work on the internet, protocol definitions work on the internet. Like HTTP as well, started as HTTP 1.0, went to 1.1, and then 2.0, and now 3.0, right? All of this kind of go through, like it's a 20-year history where it was shepherded by working groups, reviewed by the largest consumers of these protocols, and hence launched, right? So it always has to be a fair mechanism. So I think the folks that control, sort of not control, but uh, talk about improvements on the internet protocols is IETF, right? Internet Engineering Task Force. Like they are the ones who have brilliant engineers sitting on it, finding out amazing problems and talking about how do I solve for this problem. The product guys and the business guys are different. Like UEI is a protocol. How does someone monetize on UEI? That's a whole different ballgame, and we don't intend to get into that, right? You could have, like, I could build a business model that enables everyone else to be a UEI on the UEI network or the UEI protocol. That's a business call. That's my business call. Kazam could do a similar thing. Someone else could do a similar thing. But that's business piece of it. But that does not impact what's this protocol, is this is how it's going to work. This is how exactly it should work. I don't think that those are two separate things.
Okay. And one more question. Then when you address that why not use UPI itself, you assume that the payment for the charging is going to be it's going to be a prepaid concept. My question is, for example, I am driving down and I see like there was a BG, help me discover the charges on my way. I park at one of the charging slots. I simply charge and it calculates how much energy and I consumed and I pay by UPI. Why is that not a good option?
So a few things. One, you can obviously, so let's say you do the post facto payment, irrespective of whether it's UPI, whether it's a card slot, whatever that is, right? Post facto in India, in a manless or a humanless charger, where it's an independent charger in the middle of the road, we're a low trust society, right? You and I might pay for it. Not everyone's going to pay for it, right? If I get, I'll just run away. I'm like, it's okay. I'm like, it's what, 10 rupees, 15 rupees. I'm okay. I'll go away. Now, let me now address so this helps you understand that postpaid, why does postpaid not work? Because we have enabled postpaid on our platform, right? Like we enabled it and we started seeing in lakhs people were not paying, right? Wow. Like some users were not paying up until a lakh. I'm like, guys, like that's just not great, right? You drive a 26 lakh vehicle. It's okay. Like you can do it. If you forget it accidentally, that's okay. Fair excuse. We try to be as good as Amazon and be very courteous to customers. But when you start raking up a bill to a lakh and you're not even, like, we reached out and we settled it out eventually. But there are people who do that intentionally or not unintentionally. It doesn't matter. Now, let's get to prepaid. So prepaid is a way for, as a merchant, to make sure that I've got some amount of money with me before I can dispense it out, before I can dispense precious energy to the user. It's more like a security deposit, right? Now, let's distill that down to, okay, why can't I do this in just UPI, and why can't I do it? Why should I have this app, or why should I use UEI? So let's assume that in India, chargers, there are two types of chargers. There are the 3.3 sockets, or the basic cost-effective chargers, and then there are DC chargers with displays on them. The large chargers displays, I think you can generate a dynamic QR code and put it up, right? That's worked perfectly, brilliantly. You can scan the QR code and you can start paying for it. Now, for the smaller ones, you may end up putting a sticker. Very simple. You're going to think about all the merchants that is out there. I just put up a sticker. You're good. Now, again, these charging stations are again unmanned, right? There's no one looking at this charging station. I could go in tomorrow and decide to put up my sticker on it. I could put my QR code on it.
Yeah, there have been frauds like that. That has happened.
Exactly.
So
in Europe, that happens today, right? Now, because I know there is one CPU who's launching this, I just want to iterate the risks of something like this, right? So let's assume now dynamic QR codes come in, right? Now, in dynamic QR codes, what you could obviously take money, but the problem is going to be a CPU's business does not run just on retail users. 80% of their traffic runs on custom pricing. So if a Uber green driver comes to a charging station, sorry, if an Uber green driver comes to a charging station, they would charge at a much lower rate compared to a retail user like you and I. A UPI QR code has no a display that shows that QR code has no way to figure out, oh, you're a Uber driver. I need to charge you at this rate. Or oh, it's Priyakshi. I need to charge you at the retail rate, which is 21 rupees per unit. That level of complexity does not exist. All of this is what, like, there is a whole, I don't deny at all that, hey, UPI could be brought in, but it's a gimmick. At the backs, it's more like, I wouldn't call it a gimmick, but it's more, hey, if you want to spot charge retail users, perfect, at a high-end DC charger, go ahead, do it. It's excellent, very easy. You scan the QR code and you're done. But if you're a Uber driver trying to access chargers, it's the best mechanism is just do plug and charge. Because billing also happens outside. Like it's not like an individual driver pays for the charging. So that also happens outside. So that's where I see payment on charging systems evolve. And hence UEI coming into play abstracts those two things out, right? If you are UEI understands that, hey, it is Akhil who's a Uber driver accessing this charger. Hence the CPO can say, oh, this is average driver. Let me give you a separate rate. So UEI understands that context and deciphers it in that manner. That's the best part of, like, it's a transactional protocol. UPI is not transactional. UPI is more about, oh, I need to pay you this much money. Let me hit this bank account. Let me shift money here. Simple. That's the function of UPI. UEI understands that context and dispenses energy, and then eventually gives you a mechanism of, hey, here's a UPI code, send money here.
Okay. Okay. Let's carry on with enlisting. Yeah.
Okay, so let me talk about a CPO that is interested in enlisting themselves on UEI, right? One, if you already have a CMS vendor, reach out to folks like us, either Pulse Energy or to Kazam. We will help you understand, here's what you need to do in order to adopt UEI, right? Again, we're not upselling any of our products to you. It's a matter of, hey, here's the right resources to look at so that you can integrate it into your CMS platform. So it's perfect for all the CMS vendors. So all the CMS vendors, if you're listening to this, you should just simply adopt it because it is going to come in. It has to be part of your portfolio, similar to how CPOs will ask you, hey, do you have OCPI access, right? They are going to ask you, can I enable UEI for my chargers, right? So it's just good hygiene to go ahead and integrate it. It's not rocket science, very simple. It's less complex than OCPI, to be very honest. So that's one. Now for the CPOs that's getting on board, if you're working with the existing CMS vendor, just connect us through, we'll help you out. This is the tech part of it. Now, from joining a business relationship, like you want to join this alliance, you want to show your partnership, then we are setting up an alliance. It's going to be a non-profit. We'll have, we've figured out how to do funding and all the stuff, but it's going to be very democratized setup. We will publish our data publicly so that people understand the amount of transactions that is happening on UEI today, right? Like, for example, almost 90% of transactions on Pulse Energy is today happening on UEI. It's UEI protocols that is being spoken to each other and then exchanging value. So we want to advertise it, show this. Obviously, it wouldn't show that Pulse Energy gets this much, Kazam gets this much, nothing. It's going to be a single dashboard that shows UEI has done this much, right? That's the idea. So the alliance, the benefits that CPOs get out of the alliance is the fact that obviously they're joining folks like us. They get to retain control of their chargers. They don't have to rely rely on a third party deciding how and whom to show their charges to. They don't have to do that. They take that control, right? Now, if they don't have a CMS vendor, they don't have it, then come to us. This is me upselling, right? Like, hey, we have this thing, you come to us, we'll give you that platform. Again, all the controls are yours. I don't control anything. You control the platform. Very simple. So think of us as the enablers of UEI for CPOs. Now, the other side of this is marketplaces, right? So if a Google Maps wants to come in tomorrow, or a PhonePe wants to come in tomorrow, all they need to do is, again, plug and play into this UEI network. So they can also join the alliance. They can bring in traffic. They have 100 million users. They come in, every 100 million users now instantly get access to a charging network, right? So that's the idea. So if you compare the power of UEI versus an individual company trying to do this themselves, you know how much money a PhonePe or a Google Maps or a Paytm has put in to get that many users. 100 million users in a population of 1.2, 1.3. That's a lot of money in Google ads and marketing. And spans across like 8 years, 5 years to get that amount of traffic. You can't have a company that just raised $7 million just expecting that this is the app that the Janata is going to use for all their charging needs. No, it's not. That's not how it works. You need to spend considerable amount of money to get to the marketplace level that others are. What we're essentially saying is don't do that. Instead, let's invite people who have already been in these marketplaces, who are already running those marketplaces. Give them access to everyone. Why not democratize it? And that's exactly what ONDC did, and that's exactly what Namayatri did. That's exactly what we're going to do. So joining the alliance is simple. Reach out to me, reach out to the Beckn team, or reach out to Kazam. We'll introduce you to the alliance. Alliance is getting set up. We will do a PR about it. But the idea is we're setting up that alliance. We're inviting CPOs, we're inviting marketplace participants to come in so that we can help them ramp up before we go, guns blazing and talk about this in public. But the idea is, yes, it's coming, it's happening. We want to show the traction. We already have started recording our transactions on UEI and amazing numbers. So fingers crossed, when we launch, we'll have some amazing data points to share with the nation. So yeah.
Okay, understood. So one more question about when we say UEI will enable interoperability, roaming in a sense. So what kind of data sharing will happen there? Help me understand, if I have a particular charging networks app on my phone and I charge at someone else's charger, that is again, both are on UEI. So between the two CPOs, what kind of data exchange will take place?
Nothing. Your app is just speaking to that CPO's UEI endpoints.
Okay.
So it depends on how it's integrated. So let's say you are using our app, InstaCharge app, right? And there happens to be a Kazam's charger. So you take in the InstaCharge app, you go to a Kazam charger, and you decide to start it from our application. The way I would integrate it is, I would ensure that you as a user now need to go through our application. So I'm liable for your user experience in my app. So I want to make sure that if Kazam takes 50 seconds or a minute to respond to your query, I'm able to tell you, Priyakshi, don't worry. It's taking too much time. We'll help you try it back later. So I may see that traffic. I may see that Priyakshi is looking at this particular charger and asking for Kazam. Now, there's another implementation that I can do. Let's say this is what happens in Namayatri. Namayatri, you book a particular cab. It just broadcasts it to every driver. The driver says yes, and you get a response back. Same thing. In that InstaCharge app, let's say if you send a request for Kazam charger, Kazam can respond back. Kazam could look at it as, hey, it's a user coming from InstaCharge app. Should I allow it, or yes or no? It's up to Kazam to do it. Kazam says, yes, go ahead. You will see the Kazam charge. Very simple. So data sharing wise, you as a user anyway share your data with the app provider. Cool. So applications, whether it's a CPOs app or whether it's a Google Payka app, you share your data with the application provider. Now, whether the application provider should share it with someone else, that's up to the application provider. We have left all of that up to them. It's completely up to the app provider. UEI does not dictate any of it. UEI simply says, boss, if you need to access someone's network, make sure that you send it in this format. That's it. We don't say, hey, it has to be like you need to send every user's name, every user's phone number, nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
That is up to individual participants to decide what to do with it. So
Okay.
if Kazam gets that response and Kazam, like I have decided as an InstaCharge app, let's say Priyakshi as a user said to me, InstaCharge app for Pulse Energy, you have said, hey, Akhil, don't share my name or number with anyone.
Mm.
Let's assume that you have done that. What I would do is I would send the UEI packet without your name and number. I would say, hey, it's a user that has decided to check for your charges.
Mm.
Kazam could look at that packet and say, by the number and name is not there.
Mm.
I'm not going to respond. This could be a malicious user.
Mm.
I'm not responding. That is up to them. The protocol does not dictate, here's all the data that needs to be. The protocol, however, the alliance, however, wants to make sure that this is a fair playground.
Mm.
We don't want this to be a large CPO or any CPO who comes in and says, you know what, I will be a marketplace. I want my app accessing UEI, but I'm not willing to share my charges on it. We don't want that happening. That's the only point that we're drawing the line. Like, hey, if you want to participate in this network, you need to share your charges too.
Mm.
It can't be either way. Again, we haven't taken a strong decision on this, but we are encouraging anyone who's coming in, if you're a CPO, share your network and allow other marketplace apps to access it. At the end of the day, a large marketplace app will anyways have larger coverage than traffic that they bring in. So very simple.
Correct. Yeah. No, and the reason I asked this question is that from a CPO's point of view, it could be a concern that when my user's request is being addressed by some other company, I'm sharing my customer data with them, which could be a concern for, especially for maybe smaller CPOs. That is the reason I asked this question: what data will be shared, and what will be the CPO's comfort level, with sharing
So,
their customer data with their competitors in a way.
so think of it in this way. Let's say I was a CPO sitting in Nashik, Pune, right? And I've set up a charger in Nashik. I have my own app. I just have like 3 or 4 chargers. Now, to get visibility to that application, let's say you're from Mumbai, you're visiting Nashik for a day. I have to run Google Ads every day so that whenever you click on chargers near me, I make sure that my app is there in the top. That's an ad spend for me. It's the same struggle that a seller has to push more e-commerce units. That's the reason why they rely on Amazon. That's the reason why they go there, right? ONDC, what did ONDC do? ONDC said, as a seller, you shouldn't be doing SEO marketing and spending money on ads. You focus on building more reliable chargers. Your focus should be, hey, you come to my charger, it'll 100% work. Or you come to my charger, there will be a person sitting right there helping you charge the session, right? Like that's the service that you would want to spend your money on. So now what we're trying to do is we're essentially saying, we will get you that traffic. If Priyakshi comes in, she does not have to download a new app to start your charger. Otherwise, Priyakshi would be standing there and figuring out which app to download to use your charger. You're eliminating all that friction. The customer acquisition cost is out of your books. It's everywhere, right? So it becomes accessible. That's the key thing, right? Any CPO, be it large or small, the biggest problem today, even in like when we interview users who's looking to buy a vehicle, they're like, there aren't enough chargers in India. What are you saying? That 30,000 chargers that's out there? Who's saying there's not enough chargers? There are enough and more chargers out there. If you're a retail user, if you're a fleet user, I get it. But if you're a retail user, there's enough chargers out there that will suffice a trip in your metro cities. There are enough chargers out there. But still, people don't understand that. The reason why people don't understand that is people don't have visibility. You have to download each and every app to figure out, oh, itna charges hai. Right? So that And people and the four-wheeler folks talks about, hey, you should download plug share. I'm like, great, yeah, like your four-wheelers, you're sorted. But think about the guy who's, trying to make money riding a two-wheeler. He's not aware of plug share. He does not have the tribal knowledge. He relies on Google Maps. He relies on other like Map India ka app. He relies on his Amazon ka delivery app. He relies on Porter ka delivery app. That's the surface areas where these information should be accessible, right? So that's the mission. That's what UEI does. It democratizes that information and enables accessibility to the CPOs.
Okay. So, Akhil, in one of our sessions last year, you talked about cybersecurity being a concern with respect to electric vehicle charging. So, I want to bring that in and ask you, are there any aspects of cybersecurity that are addressed by adopting UEI?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it's a great question, right? So I'll first start with the perimeter from a security point of view, because security is all about what are the attack surface areas, right? So is UEI going to solve the attack surface area between a charger and a cloud server? Absolutely not, right? It's not going to help with that. If you have an insecure charger, you forget to lock your charger cabinet at night, not UEI's problem, right? It's in fact your problem. Like you as a CPO should be more secure about it. If your cloud server gets hacked, or you leave access of your keys in public or in GitHub, that's your problem. So that we're not going to solve for that. But how do I solve for UEI endpoints? So a PhonePe apps server and a Kazam's server speaking to each other. They're speaking in UEI. Let's assume that someone tries to pen test it, someone tries to interfere or extract that information. That's not going to work because the encryption of that traffic is as secure as UPI transactions in India today. Because the way the packet is encrypted, there is a set of digital signature signing processes and algorithms that UEI participants have to adopt in order to be compliant on UEI. So if today I have to integrate with a bank's API, there are certain set of algorithms and encryptions that I need to do in my server in order to even access that API. That same level of security has been brought to UEI. This is to ensure that it's an end-to-end encrypted. Like even if I get a TLS certificate, like a SSL certificate, and try to hack that channel, the content is still jumbled up. Like that's secure. So the layer 6 encryption is anyways there. Layer 7 encryption also exists. So it's that secure. Again, there are talks about how to make it even more secure, but I think it'll be an overkill. But from an encryption point of view, it's bank level security. From a protocol point of view, it's up to the adopters to decide whether they want to do that or not, right? It's completely up to them. But yes, if you want an extremely secure system and do these APIs support it? Absolutely. You want banking level encryptions? Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So you also talked about there are other potential use cases of UEI in overall energy space. We're talking about one use case here, EV charging. So what are those other use cases it can be helpful with?
I think so we have a demo set up in our office at Pulse Energy's headquarters in HSR layout. What we did was pretty fascinating, right? We essentially said, hey, if EV charging today costs 15 rupees from a charger, and that we know the mix of energy is not that great. It's Bescom's energy, so it's probably 45% green. But as a user, I want green energy. Like as a user, I want green energy, but not all the drivers, EV drivers, like the two-wheeler driver doesn't care if it's green hay or non-green. Today, green energy, if I want just pure green energy, I need to pay more money. That's what happens. What we decided was, hey, can we provide green energy at a cheaper cost than the grid through a charger? Can we do that? If we do that, we have solved for value, right? Every two-wheeler driver, irrespective of whether they don't care about where this energy comes from, they're going to go for the cheapest energy. As a nation, we can support green energy now because we have a viable business case, because there's more units being sold and consumed. And as an individual, I'm more happy because it's green energy, right? I could potentially claim credits for it. So how do we do this? So what we did was we put up a solar panel on the rooftop. We put up a second life battery in our garage. We literally charged that battery and then dispensed it out through the charger. Now, all these three things were set up by three different companies. Solar was set up by someone else, battery was set up by someone else, charger is set up by someone else. And all of them are speaking UEI. So what we did was we said, hey, a user came to this charger, charged. Let's say they selected, I want green energy at 2 rupees cheaper. Let me go ahead and charge. They completely charged and left. They have now consumed, like they purchased green energy. I've literally shown that certificate to the other guys in this ecosystem and said, hey, whatever I need 2 units of energy, green energy, because I just sold 2 units of green energy. I need it. And if someone needs it, go ahead, purchase it. The solar guy or the inverter guy who pushes it back to the grid, that is Sheru, he sees this as an opportunity because he can push energy back into the grid and make money. He sees that, hey, there's a demand here. Pulse is willing to sell the demand, and he pushes energy back into the grid. So what we've what we've done is we have created a market where green energy could be traded for a cost higher than what normally a grid would provide. So when we with the latest budget and with the PM talking about 1 crore solar rooftops, imagine the potential of this, right? If any solar rooftop generator could literally tap into this UEI market and potentially trade energy with a charging person, nothing like it, right? Like it's unlocks a lot of synergies. Again, there's a long way to go. We need to, like, discoms obviously are the ones that's going to get incentivized in this. They will end up making a lot of money in this because now they're getting energy sources. They don't have to actually go pay the energy sources guys, right? The energy sources are already there. It's like real evergreen sources and it's all green. So discoms don't need to do that work. They don't have to pay for those green energy sources. People are already generating it and storing it and packing it and then providing it back. It's like big, massive profit pools for discoms. So it's a business case that needs to be built out. Discoms should start believing it. Today, there are challenges. It's a matter of time when everyone starts understanding what is the power of a single protocol that could make different energy consumption and generation devices speak to each other, right? Another fascinating use case that we had was imagine if your AC could speak UEI or your fridge could speak UEI. It could actually optimize energy consumption based on the cost of energy that is happening. Because in this future, by April, government is going to introduce time of day tariffs. Okay. Cost of energy is going to fluctuate over time. And when this happens, you don't want your AC to be on or you don't want your fridge to be on during that time. Things like this, a protocol like this, imagine a protocol like this being embedded into your AC ka chipset already. Power modules, it's already embedded into it. The AC could automatically become smart. Oh, you know what? This UEI, it pings the UEI network every 5 minutes to understand what the grid rate is for this particular discom and starts adjusting the power control. Fascinating use cases, right? Like this is just one example. Second example is school buses. School buses charge during the day or during the night. They do a trip during the day and then they do a trip during the night. If there is excess energy being kept in these battery packs, and during night is where peak happens, buses could now push energy back into the grid. All using UEI, right? Like it's massive amounts of energy that is being spent. So, and this energy could be green energy that could be powered by the school ka rooftops, right? in any school rooftops, you put up these rooftops, this energy is going into the buses, the bus charges it, free energy, and during night, they want to push it back into the grid to make more money. Now, an asset that is sitting dead is now making revenue. Crazy use cases can come up when you start thinking about what could UEI enable. So that's what, folks like us, because all of this is eventually driven by intelligent software. So you need, like, use cases exist. It's a matter of orchestration.
Okay. And I think, so thank you for that. And I think I'll come to my last question, which is, are you planning an official launch? Like you said you'll do a PR soon, but what will the launch be? Because as I understand, the UEI is you're already charging vehicles on UEI. So what will the launch be? Will it more like publishing numbers on what you've done so far, or opening it up for
No,
more
it'll be,
people? What is it?
yeah, it's a good question. So it'll be a official launch announcing the alliance,
Okay.
saying, hey, here's what the alliance is, here's how you can enter. Because we don't yet have hey, here's the exact steps that you need to follow. Here's a website that you can go to sign up, or here's the process. Like, it's all a little ad hoc right now. So we want to formalize it. And that's the first part of it. The second part of it, we want to give confidence to participants to come here, right? We just don't want it to be that, hey, Pulse Energy and Kazam is doing something in the corner, or Sheru and these guys have decided to do something in the corner. We should go check it out. No. The idea is to show progress. People have been working on this. People have started seeing a lot of traction on this. Show them that. It's just that trust building exercise. So you can't build that trust with the market till the time you've shown traction. So the idea is, with the launch, we're showing traction that, hey, this is a believable thing now. And here's, by the way, here's a process of entry, right? Very simple. It's as simple as that.
Understood. So I think very helpful, Akhil. Thank you so much for taking the time and explaining everything in detail. And I would love to hear from you once you decide to launch and more exciting updates from you.
Will do, Priyakshu. Thank you so much for having me discuss this. I think it's good to kind of get the word out. More people listening to this will help get the word out. Thank you.
Sure.
See you. Bye.
See you.